Good day, everyone. Today we're going to discuss Chapter 8, Lesson 3, which is all about the legal foundations of education. Particularly, we're going to delve into Republic Act 4670 or the Magna Carta for public school teachers. So the legal basis of education in the Philippines are rooted in various laws and policies that ensure access to quality education, protect the rights of teachers and students, and promote national development. Key legislations such as the 1987 Constitution and RA 4670 shapes the country's education system. So the legal foundations of education establish the framework for ensuring quality and equitable learning experiences for all students. These laws and policies govern various aspects of the education system, from curriculum standards to teachers' rights. A significant law in this context is Republic Act number 4670, or also known as the Magna Carta for Public School Teachers. This act protects the rights and welfare of teachers, ensuring fair working conditions and proper compensation. Its provisions will be explored in this discussion. So let's begin by discussing the Declaration of Policy Coverage. So the policy aims to enhance the social and economic status of public school teachers by improving their living conditions, employment terms, and career opportunities. It seeks to attract qualified individuals to the profession, recognizing that the quality of education and the nation's economic growth depend on skilled and well-supported teachers. As mentioned earlier, this act is widely known among educators as pre-service teacher and pre-service teachers as the Magna Carta for public school teachers, applicable to all public school teachers except those in the professorial staff of state colleges and universities. The term teacher under this act refers to individuals engaged in full-time classroom teaching across education levels, including guidance counselors, school librarians, vocational instructors, and those in supervisory or administrative roles in government-operated schools. However, it includes school nurses, physicians, dentists, and other non-teaching staff. The next subsection is recruitment and career. Under Section 3, the Department of Education is mandated to define clear recruitment policies for teacher selection and appointment. Upon the Act's approval, specific minimum educational qualification for teacher applicants are established for various educational levels. For teachers in kindergarten and elementary grades, a bachelor's degree in elementary education is required, equipping them with the necessary skills to teach young students effectively. Secondary school teachers must hold a bachelor's degree in education with a major and a minor, or a bachelor's degree in arts or sciences, along with at least 18 professional units in education. This is to ensure both subject knowledge and teaching competency. Teachers for secondary vocational and two-year technical courses need a bachelor's degree in their specialized field and at least 18 professional units in education, combining technical expertise with pedagogical training. Collegiate level teachers, excluding vocational instructors, must possess a master's degree in a specific area of specialization. This is to ensure advanced knowledge and the ability to teach at the higher education level. So in the recruitment process, if qualified applicants are unavailable, the school superintendent may appoint teachers temporarily, even without meeting the minimum educational qualifications. However, teacher applicants must undergo competitive examinations, with appointments prioritized based on exam rankings. Examination results will be made public, and applicants will receive their scores and ranks. Section 4 of this act under the recruitment and career establishes that teachers who had received adequate training and possess civil service eligibility are not subject to a probationary period before receiving a regular appointment. However, if a teacher lacks the civil service eligibility but meets the minimum educational qualifications, they may be appointed provisionally. In such cases, the teacher must undergo a probationary period of at least 1 year from their provisional appointment. This ensures proper evaluation and qualification before confirming a teacher's permanent status. Section 5, on the other hand, emphasizes job stability and security for teachers in line with existing laws. Teachers appointed on a provisional status due to lack of civil service eligibility can receive a permanent appointment after serving at least 10 years of continuous, efficient, and faithful service. This provision ensures long-term career growth, offering teachers job security and recognition for their dedication, provided that they meet service requirements, promoting a stable and committed workforce in the education sector. Now let's move on the next section, which talks about the consent for transportation expenses. So Section 6 of this particular act protect teachers from involuntary transfers, ensuring that no teacher is moved without consent, except in cases of service necessity. If a transfer is required, the school superintendent must notify the teacher, stating reasons for the move. Teachers can appeal transfers to higher authorities with a decision on their appeal suspending the transfer. Transfers are prohibited 3 months before elections. If a transfer is approved, the government will cover necessary transportation expenses for the teacher and their family. Now let's explore the next point, which is all about the Code of Professional Conduct for Teachers. So Section 7 mandates the Secretary of Education to develop a Code of Professional Conduct for public school teachers within 6 months of the Act's approval. Each teacher is to receive a copy of this code. If this is not feasible due to budget constraints, at least 3 copies will be provided to school principals or head teachers for teachers' access. This ensures that teachers have clear guidelines for professional behavior and responsibilities, promoting ethical standards in education. And we already have a thorough discussion on this matter, particularly on salient provisions in the previous chapters. Now let's transition to the next discussion point. So this section highlights the safeguards in disciplinary procedures, and Section 8 ensures that teachers receive fair safeguards during disciplinary procedures, including transparency, representation, and opportunities to defend their actions. First one is the right to be informed in writing of charges. Teachers have the right to be formally notified of the specific charges against them, and this ensures transparency and fairness as they must understand the accusations in detail. Written communication provides clarity, prevents misunderstandings, and allows the teacher to prepare an adequate defense. Without this safeguard, teachers may be unfairly penalized without understanding the nature of the allegations. Second, the right to full access to the evidence in the case. Teachers are entitled to review all evidence presented against them. This safeguard ensures they can fully understand the basis of the charges and have an opportunity to challenge any false or misleading information. Access to evidence allows the teacher to gather their own defense, strengthening the fairness of the disciplinary process. Transparency in evidence is key to ensuring justice and accountability. The third one is the right to defend himself and to be defended by a representative of his choice and or by his organization. Adequate time being given to the teacher for the preparation of his defense. Teachers must have the opportunity to personally defend themselves or be represented by a chosen individual, including a union representative. Adequate time should be given for preparation to ensure they can effectively respond to charges. This safeguard ensures that teachers can seek professional, legal, or organizational support, reducing the risk of unfair decisions and fostering a just process. And lastly, the right to appeal to clearly designate authority. So teachers have the right to appeal disciplinary decisions to clearly designated authorities, ensuring additional layer of protection. This allows for an objective review of the case and by a higher authority, preventing arbitrary or unjust outcomes. The appeal process provides teachers with an avenue to ensure unfair decisions and ensures accountability to the process of disciplinary actions. To serve the integrity of the disciplinary process, no publicity should be given to actions taken against a teacher while the case is pending. Publicizing disciplinary proceedings can lead to reputable damage, social stigma, and bias. This safeguard ensures that teachers are treated fairly without undue external influence or prejudgment before the outcome is decided. Section 9 outlines the procedures for hearing administrative charges against teachers. A committee chaired by the school superintendent or their authorized representative includes a teachers' organization representative and a division supervisor. This ensures fairness through a diverse panel. The committee is tasked with submitting findings and recommendations to the Director of Public Schools within 30 days after hearings conclude. If the school superintendent is involved in the complaint, the Secretary of Education will appoint all committee members, ensuring impartiality. So moving ahead, let's explore the following discussion points. So Section 10 focuses on no discrimination. This section ensures that teachers are not discriminated against based on personal characteristics such as gender, race, religion, or marital status. In entrance into the teaching profession, job responsibilities and termination should be based solely on professional qualifications and performance. This safeguards equal opportunity, preventing bias and ensuring a fair and just environment for all teachers, regardless of the background of personal circumstances. Section 11, on the other hand, is centered on married teachers. This section encourages the employment of married couples in the same locality when both are public school teachers. It aims to support family stability by enabling married teachers to work together in the same area. This consideration helps reduce the burden of relocation or separation, promoting a balanced personal and professional life for teachers. It reflects a family-friendly approach to public education employment. Lastly, for recruitment and career, Section 12 focuses on academic freedom. Academic freedom guarantees teachers the autonomy to make decisions about teaching methods and classroom content without undue interference. Teachers are free to explore diverse pedagogical approaches and present a range of viewpoints to foster critical thinking. These safeguards protect teachers from censorships and supports their professional judgment, enabling them to effectively educate students according to their expertise and the curriculum, while maintaining a respectful and open academic environment. Now let's shift to the next subsection, which is all about the hours of work and remuneration. So Section 13 limits teachers to a maximum of 6 hours of classroom teaching per day, allowing time for preparation and grading. However, in exigencies of service, teachers may be required to work up to 8 hours a day. In such instances, they are entitled to additional compensation, which includes their regular salary plus at least 25% of their basic pay. This provision ensures that teachers are fairly compensated for extended teaching hours while maintaining a balance between workload and remuneration. Furthermore, Section 14 ensures teachers are fairly compensated for work beyond their regular classroom duties. For instance, teachers who participate in co-curricular, out-of-school, or other extra activities will receive an additional 25% of their regular salary after completing at least 6 hours of classroom teaching. Similarly, teachers or school officials not involved in classroom instruction will be compensated with at least 25% extra pay for any work exceeding 8 hours per day. This compensation is to be covered by the agencies utilizing the teacher's services, ensuring that extra work is financially recognized. Education authorities are tasked with ensuring that teachers are only assigned to additional government agency duties when proper remuneration is guaranteed, protecting teachers' rights to fair pay for extended responsibilities. Now, let's discuss the criteria for salaries. So first, comparison with other occupations. Teachers' salaries should be competitive with those in other fields, requiring similar qualifications, training, and skills. This ensures that teaching is an attractive and fair profession compared to other sectors, offering similar educational requirements. Second, ensuring a reasonable standard of life. Teacher salaries must provide a decent standard of living for teachers and their families, ensuring that their compensation is sufficient to meet their basic needs and maintain a good quality of life. Lastly, salary grading based on responsibility. Salaries should reflect the qualifications and responsibilities of different teaching positions. Higher qualifications and greater responsibilities should be compensated with higher pay, while narrowing the salary gap between the lowest and highest positions to ensure fairness across the profession. Furthermore, Section 16 talked about salary scales that outlines a salary progression system for teachers, ensuring a gradual increase from a minimum to a maximum salary. Teachers receive automatic salary increments every 3 years, provided their efficiency rating is satisfactory. The salary scale ensures that teachers reach the maximum salary within the span of 10 years, fostering long-term career development and rewarding performance. In the same manner, it was emphasized in Section 17 that in equality in salary scales, that equal salary scales for teachers across different government levels must be ensured. Teachers employed by local governments must receive salaries at least equal to those provided by the national government. This promotes fairness and prevents disparities in compensation for teachers, regardless of their place of employment within the public sector. With respect to the cost of living allowance, or COLA, Section 18 mandates that teacher salaries must adjust with cost of living, ensuring they remain aligned with inflation. A cost of living allowance, or COLA, will be provided based on changes in the cost of living index. The Secretary of Education, in consultation with relevant agencies, must recommend annual appropriations to Congress for COLA funding. Upon presidential approval, the COLA determination becomes binding for all government-employed teachers, including those in local governments, ensuring uniformity in salary adjustments across levels. For special and hardship allowance, Section 19 highlighted that teachers working in areas with difficult commuting or unique hazards will receive special hardship allowances. The Secretary of Education will determine these areas, and teachers will be compensated with an allowance of at least 25% of their monthly salary to offset the challenges they face. Additionally, it was also pointed out in Section 20 that teacher salaries must be paid in legal currency of the Philippines. If paid through checks or treasury warrants, these must be redeemable or at any authorized government office or bank, ensuring teachers can access their earnings conveniently and legally. In terms of salary deductions, Section 21 of this Act prohibits any deductions from teacher salaries unless specifically authorized by law. However, teachers may authorize certain deductions in writing. These include dues and fees owed to the Philippine Public School Teachers Associations and premiums for insurance policies. This ensures that teachers' salaries remain mostly intact, with deductions only occurring for authorized purposes, giving them control over which deductions are made. In terms of health measures and injury benefits, Section 22 highlights that teachers are required to undergo a free medical examination before starting their work and subsequently an annual medical checkup. If treatment or hospitalization is needed, the government will cover the costs. In regions with limited medical facilities, teachers can seek care elsewhere, with the government reimbursing their travel expenses for treatment. Additionally, Section 23 stressed that teachers are entitled to compensation for injuries sustained during their employment under existing laws. This includes recognition of physical or nervous strain as a compensable occupational disease, ensuring teachers' health risks are covered by workers' compensation funds. With regards to leave and retirement benefits, this Act outlines the following specific provisions. Let's begin with study leave in Section 2. Teachers with 7 years of service at least are entitled to study leave of up to 1 school year. This leave is granted according to a schedule set by the Department of Education, with teachers receiving at least 60% of their monthly salary during the leave. Teachers can only accumulate 1 year of study leave unless they need an additional semester for thesis completion. After the first year, no compensation is provided. Study leave counts toward seniority and pension benefits. If the leave extends beyond 1 year, no compensation is given, but it requires approval from the Secretary of Education. So let's proceed with Section 25 for the indefinite leave. Teachers with illnesses requiring long-term treatment, for instance, extending beyond 1 year, are eligible for indefinite sick leave. This provision ensures that teachers can take extended time off without a fear of losing their position, prioritizing their health while ensuring their job security during prolonged medical recovery. For salary increase upon retirement in Section 26, public school teachers who meet the age and service requirements for retirement are entitled to a one-range salary increase upon retirement. This increase becomes the basis for calculating their lump sum retirement pay and ongoing monthly pension benefits, ensuring improved financial security after their service ends. This act also gives provisions on teachers' intent to organize and participate in organization. As stipulated in Section 27, public school teachers are granted the right to freely establish and join organizations, whether local or national, without needing prior authorization. These organizations can be formed to advance and protect the teachers' interests, ensuring they have platform for collective bargaining, advocacy, and support. This provision upholds teachers' rights to organize and participate in activities aimed at improving their working conditions and addressing professional concerns. Furthermore, Section 28 pointed out that teachers' rights to organize and participate in associations are protected from discrimination. It is unlawful to make a teacher's employment conditional on not joining or leaving an organization, or dismiss or penalize a teacher because of their membership or involvement in activities outside school. Additionally, teachers cannot be prevented from performing duties related to their organizational role, ensuring that participation in teacher organizations does not negatively impact their employment or professional responsibilities. This provision safeguards teachers' rights to unionize and engage in advocacy without fear of retaliation. In addition to Section 29, Section 29 emphasized that national teachers' organizations must be consulted with developing educational policies, professional standards, and social security policies for teachers. This ensures that teachers' voices and concerns are considered in decision-making processes that affect their professional welfare. By involving these organizations, the government acknowledges the importance of teachers' perspectives in shaping policies that impact the work environment, benefits, and overall professional development of teachers, fostering a more inclusive and informed approach to policy creation. So the RA 4670, or Magna Carta for Public School Teachers, is a landmark legislation that aims to improve the welfare rights and working conditions of teachers in the Philippines. By ensuring fair compensation, job security, and professional development opportunities, it upholds teachers' dignity and acknowledges their critical role in shaping the future of the nation. The law protects teachers from discrimination, guarantees health benefits, and supports their rights to organize. Overall, RA 4670 foster an environment where teachers are respected, valued, and empowered, ultimately contributing to the advancement of quality education in the country. So that ends our discussion. Thank you for your attention.